Let's stick with the people who know the middle bobs first.
And he nods.
I noticed he didn't answer the question on how much the fee is going to be.
Uh-huh.
So he goes back to the conversation about the middle bobs, and he starts to inquire the specific regions you're looking for.
You know what? I'll be fine with just the information right now. I probably want to check with them before I see exactly what I'm going to need for this work.
It's very good. It might take me a small amount of time to locate an information broker, and there will, of course, be a fee for that.
I see how this works.
And he asks if we have a deal then.
Well, hold on. I might want to go talk to one of your competitors over there and see if I can get a better offer.
He nods. He tells you, take all the time you need. He asks if you would like a recommendation. He knows everybody here in the plaza. Of course, a recommendation. There will be a fee for that.
We'll be all right on our own. Thank you, though.
And he nods, and then you hear his neck crack, and his head starts turning the same direction, and after a few moments, the bald face snaps back into place.
Did he take the coins or just inspect them?
He just inspected them, and he assured you that they're good metal.
Okay. Let's get out of line here.
Yeah.
And he immediately moves on to his next transaction.
So
All
they
right,
don't...
so we just choose a direction and start hiking, and... Well, okay. Wait. Okay, this is the Foundry District, right? So they sell things, they sell information. Maybe if we just walk away from the Foundry District, we'll find a place that we can just find, like, a guide, as opposed to complex transactional, which I have to respect. I mean, I have to admit, it would be nice to have a service like that sometimes when looking for real reagents on my work, but I think that's overkill for finding a shop.
I have possibly a better idea.
What's that?
How much copper did you just toss on the table there?
I only have 8 copper pieces on me.
Alright, Seeker will take that. And he looks around the... He puts it visibly, like, 4 in each hand, and looks around the square.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any children around?
There are small creatures.
Yeah, small creatures is fine. Anything that looks like childlike.
Make me...
Helpful if they're wearing, like, cheap clothes.
You have no idea what constitutes cheap clothing here.
Yeah, I know.
Make me make an investigation check.
Uh, 15.
So, watching for a few moments, you notice that there are small humanoid creatures. A lot of them look like they're doing intermediary work, running messages back and forth quite a lot of the time. So you see a lot of the same faces over and over again.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm looking for.
Okay.
And I flag one of them down who looks like they just finished their commission, and then says, "We have 8 copper pieces, and we need directions to the Guildhall ward. Half now, half when we get there."
You flag one of the children down. It comes over, and impossible to tell its age, because it has some kind of reptilian vibe to it. And in fact, it has a long snake-like tongue when it talks. And it's wearing, over its clothes, it's wearing some kind of strange protective sheet, as though it looks like the rain is agitating it quite a bit. And you're speaking to it in what language?
Common.
Common?
Yeah.
The conversation is very difficult as you go back and forth. However, you notice the whole time you're speaking to it, its eyes are fixated on Scrappy. So what is it you say?
I say, I have 8 copper pieces and I need a guide to the Guildhall ward. I'll give you half now and half when we get there.
Make an intelligence check.
Alright. That is a 24.
Okay. As you're speaking to this child, it's not speaking common exactly. It's a sort of common. But you have to imagine, like, someone speaking, like, Louisiana Creole speaking to, say, a Cockney Brit. They're both technically speaking English, but they're also speaking completely different languages. There's a lot of idioms you don't understand. It's a pidgin of common that you're not familiar with. But your patient...
I can understand them. They just might not understand me.
Well,
So
you
I
have-
still have competent.
You have to make yourself understood to them.
Yeah.
But even with comprehend languages, like, you're still physically hearing them, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're hearing idioms you don't understand. A pidgin of common that you've not familiar with.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah.
But you're patient with him, and it knows the way to the Guildhall ward, and it can guide you there, but it wants to ride Scrappy the whole way.
I'll run that by Alex.
Yeah, sure. Let me close the saddlebags.
So does Scrappy have, like, reins or something?
No.
Like a horn. He has like a horn or something.
Yeah,
Hold
I'll
on
show
to
him
it,
how
that's it.
how I ride him.
Oh, so you affirm that he's allowed to ride Scrappy?
Yeah.
As soon as that happens, leaps up onto Scrappy's back and clasps both of his hands around Scrappy's horn and starts violently kicking Scrappy's side, like he's probably seen people riding horses or other mounts, and begins beating on Scrappy with both fists about the top of his head and his neck, trying to get him to go.
He won't understand unless you point. Tell him to stick with us and just go slowly in the direction the kid's pointing.
Right.
Okay?
I think he's trying to steal Scrappy.
And in this way, the child, who is incredibly entertained, having the time of his life riding the giant metal robot monster, and he points with his arms and his hands, and he doesn't stop kicking with his heels, and he doesn't stop beating on Scrappy's back. But Scrappy starts following the kid's motions, moving away from the Great Foundry.
Okay. Guess we follow him then.
Okay. So what kind of pace are you setting, Alex, through the streets, since you're the one kind of in control of how fast Scrappy moves?
Like, slow for me, like 15 feet around.
Okay. So you move away, and the smog lets up a little bit. The rain does not, as the foundry shrinks and shrinks behind you and eventually disappears. You couldn't swear to whether or not you had walked back along the same street that you originally stepped out to, because after a while, the streets kind of do start looking the same. At the same time, though, it's almost like you never see the same building twice. The city has this quality where it's almost uniform in its uniqueness, if that makes sense. However, as you move in this direction, the streets begin to get wider and wider. You see fewer and fewer buildings crammed next to and on top of each other, and you start seeing larger buildings surrounded with walls, the way you would see in Dunfoss, where they have like manors in the city, where a large building is set back from the street. As this happens, you notice that you're being led away from the main thoroughfares of the area. In particular, at one point, you're headed towards what looks like this large, refreshing fountain in the center of a large open-air market area. The child deliberately steers away from that, referring to move through tighter streets and alleyways. So you're getting glimpses of nicer-looking houses and buildings and more upper-class areas. And instead of just the squashed mass of humanity on the cobblestones, people are traveling in carts being carried by what you assume to be slaves back and forth across the city. And the boy is trying to avoid these open roads if possible.
So
When I notice him doing that,
Mhm.
I'll kind of point a thumb in that direction, and talk in like I would to some of my crime boys back in town. I'll say, any fancy lads or cops that we should watch out for?
And he looks up and he takes his hand, and starts knocking on his head. And he tells you, hardheads.
Secret nods.
Gus is going like, is there any like along our entire trip? Is
Mm-hmm.
there any kind of like, I don't know, like food carts or anything?
Not on the roads you're taking, because he's sticking deliberately to smaller side streets and alleyways, cramped areas between the buildings rather than out on the open areas instead. But as you look through the buildings and looking out into the larger manors, the larger structures, the fountains, more decorative areas, You absolutely do see food peddlers from time to time.
Gus is going to at one point just say, "Hold on a sec," and he's going to like count like the coppers he has, and he's gonna run out and buy everybody like, I don't know, like a kebab or something. The kid too.
A little sweet or something.
So what you find is what you surmise to be maybe a bakery premises, which is selling wares out of a large front window with canvas draped over it. Very, very colorful canvas. And as you approach, you smell fresh baked good and confections in the window. But when you present your coppers, you're told that your custom is no good here.
Okay. Do you accept gold?
The proprietor asks, he's acting like you're wasting his time. And Gus is not the class of person he usually sells to. He tells you the prices are the prices. You can pay them or not.
Okay, how much is a donut or whatever they sell, the pastries?
Okay, you point to one of the little nicer looking pastry confections that they have out on a plate that looks and smells like it's been fresh out of an oven recently. He tells you it'll be 3 merts for half of that pastry.
All right, see you later. And Gus turns around and leaves.
And
well,
he gives you a shrug like that's exactly what he was expecting the dirty, unwashed peasant was going to do.
Gus,
I think we're in the fancy town.
Yeah, this is the fancy town.
Yeah.
I'm going to spend the trip talking to the kid trying to pick up some of the local lingo.
The local lingo? I will only allow any of you to pick up Sigil Can't if you level up and have some way to expend a resource on it. Like, you're going to actually have to pick it up as a skill or a proficiency of some kind.
I'm not trying to pick it up as, like, a language I can speak. I'm just trying to pick up a few words like hardheads.
I mean, if you ask him what the hardheads are, he's able to point them out as patrols go by now and again on the road. And you can see why they're called hardheads. They're wearing plate armor, very ornate plate armor. And there seems to be some kind of uniformity to their design. Some of them have certain kinds of horns or spikes coming off their shoulders and knees. Other ones have various kinds of intricate filigree done. This seems to denote maybe rank inside of their organization. But they all wear the exact same kind of unadorned, completely plain, yellow and blue plate helmet over their head.
Right.
Yellow and blue, huh?
Yellow and blue.
It's odd.
I never knew that about the hardheads. Yellow and blue.
They're the ones to avoid.
Well, in Flumphscape campaign, their armor was typically red.
Yeah, no, that's
Okay.
something that happened because
That's
we
cool.
fucked with things in Flumphscape.
Yeah.
I'm not misremembering. All right.
No, their armor was they had issued armor and it was red.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So. Okay. Yeah, no, proceed. I'm sorry. I
Okay.
thought I had a thought, but then it
Connor
vanished.
is looking very anxious.
I mean, you definitely get the impression this is why he's sticking to these back roads.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's no reason to go near police.
Okay?
Connor...
Police in any city are basically garbage.
Oh, that's not why Connor is anxious.
Connor's
Seeker.
anxious because he's surrounded by Fae and Fiends and Fae and Undead and Fae.
Yeah.
Seeker, make a charisma check.
Alright.
Hasn't even used his ability yet either.
It's a 9.
Okay. Bear with me just 1 second. You notice as you move through this district of the town, that he's moving more and more away from a straight line. He's taking more lefts than rights. And at one point, he points off in what looks to you to just be a random direction down a side street. And he tells you the word Goldbeards. And he shakes his head, looks down, and then resumes beating on Scrappy, getting to move forward.
What's a gold beard?
The kid tells you that if the Goldbeards catch you, you end up in a dungeon. And that's why we're going way far out of the way of them. And he just looks down and shakes his head again.
What do you mean catch you? What, like under pretext? Are they like law enforcement?
The gist of it is that the Hardheads work for the Goldbeards.
I think being poor in this part of town is enough pretext.
Yeah.
Got it.
Fair.
Okay, being poor, crime. Gotcha.
Continuing down this road. And eventually, after half an hour or so, he starts being more and more open about what side streets he'll take. To the point where you can once again look down and a couple blocks away, see the large thoroughfares with the large buildings and the manor walls and such. And off in the distance, in the smog, you start seeing bright points of illumination that looks and sounds, as you get closer still, like fireworks. At which point, the child looks up, spellbound, clasps his hands together, and then leaps off Scrappy and darts off in the direction of the fireworks.
I mean,
I guess we chase him.
I guess this is as far as we're going.
I mean, he didn't
Based
ask
on
for his
this
4
guy.
copper, did he?
No. He saw the fireworks, he got excited, he leapt off Scrappy and ran off in that direction.
I guess could go toward the source of the fireworks. Sure, why not?
Yeah, before we go though, now that we've gotten away from the foundry and we're in more of the richer part of town, I'm going to spend some time cleaning everyone up with prestidigitation so we don't get immediately turned away.
It's really frustrating because no matter how many times you cast prestidigitation, Connor never gets clean.
He likes it that way.
So what's next?
Yeah, I'm gonna approach where the fireworks are and see what the commotion's all about.
It's way off in the distance. You're going to have to move on down this road, what looks like at least a few more blocks before you'll start seeing anything come through the smog.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's fair.
sure.
Are we still in the section of town where you can be arrested for being poor?
I mean, if we were, that kid wouldn't have run off.
Yeah.
I'll put it this way. He didn't run off in the direction of the open areas you can see a couple blocks away towards the big manor houses and such.
Okay.
Moving off in that direction, after a few more moments, you start hearing this kind of hollow, but also this kind of enchanting sounding music. And you see in the city opens up very widely into a large... Open air is the wrong word because this place doesn't really have air as such. But you can see where
Smog market.
a large big top tent has been set up with a multitude of smaller tents and many kinds of singers and entertainers. And closest to you, you see a small stall that it looks like a temporary structure, but it's built with good metal and very strong canvas. And you see this small creature, maybe 3 foot tall or so, maybe it's the size of a halfling, but with the head and musculature of a bull. And he's loading something into these little... He's got 3 or 4 of these small cannons set up, and he's loading something into the front of them, and he's jamming it down, and then he's inserting a wick into the back part, and lighting the wick, and standing back, and firing off these spectacles into the air, where they explode into color and sound, much to the joy and celebration of those looking on.
Is he packing like powder into the cannons before he does that, or does it look like he has like whatever he's putting in there has it packed in already, or something else?
Make an intelligence check.
Sure. That is a 14.
Okay. He's not packing and loading it the same way that you would, say, a dragon powder rifle.
Mm-hmm.
Which in and of itself would already be kind of miraculous to see. It looks as though he's using these proprietary charges that are encased maybe in some kind of ceramic material. And you would imagine that the powder and something to guide the color and the shape of the charge once the ceramic bursts is molded inside of it. If you spend a few hours with one of these mechanisms, you'd probably be able to figure out all of its inner workings. But this is the kind of cannon, it looks like you could build it, and then somebody with no skill in alchemy or firearms or anything, with just a simple instruction, would be able to load it and fire it on their own without any assistance.
Some good craftsmanship.
But it definitely looks like there's some kind of show or celebration happening here. Lots of
Yeah,
music.
Is there anyone like standing at the entrance, like waving people in, or?
There's not really one single entrance. You see people filtering in from roads and streets on all sides. Also, looking around, closer to where you're standing than the far end of the square, you see teams of these hardheads standing there, between 3 and 5 of them in a stretch, just kind of standing, regarding the merriment on the periphery of it.
Gus is gonna like wave down just like the nearest person and be like, "So what's the celebration about?"
Well, the nearest person to where you guys, as you're coming in, is the small bull-headed person loading and firing off these fireworks. The fireworks are kind of showing the entrance to the merriment from this direction. So that's probably the closest.
Yeah, well, sure. Let's ask him. Let's ask him what's the haps. Why is he shooting this stuff in the sky? It's pretty and all. Just curious as to what the occasion is.
As you wake up, what language are you using?
I'll start with common and then see where my other languages will take me.
You start with common, and the small creature looks up at you, and then it looks back into this metal structure that's been built up. Looks like a temporary housing unit, almost. And he calls out something in a language you don't understand, at which point a similar creature, only this one close to 9 feet tall, shoulders its way out, bending beneath the canvas where the 3 cannons are being loaded and fired, and steps out in front of you. The thing is just all bulk and muscle, and it folds these heavy arms in front of it. And its hair on its face and its beard coming down the sides of its head is whitish gray. And you just see the years of age on this thing's face. And it looks across its arms, looks down at you menacingly.
Lucius maintains a jovial front and says, "What's the occasion?"
And you're speaking in common?
Yes.
And the man, ? Replies in common, simply, tomfoolery, but a good source of coin. What do you want?
Curious as to what all the hubbub was about, more than anything. It's not often you see a city street have these kinds of displays.
The hell is a hubbub? I have no time for nonsense. Do you have a point or do you not?
I was trying to get some information about what's going on, more than anything. Merely curious.
He says that I'm being paid to set off fireworks, and I've taught my son how to do it. As it's not obvious. And he kind of scans the rest of you as he's speaking with Lucius.
Who paid you, pray tell?
Who are you? Why do you need this information?
I'm Lucius Udoc. I'm an investigator, and
An investigator for whom?
A private investigator.
A private investigator hired on behalf of whom? Don't play games with me, boy. Who sent you to pry into my business?
I mean, I basically just asked you the same question.
On whose-
Seeker just steps up and says, "We're working for the Church of Osprey at the moment. We don't mind or care about your business. Feel free to carry on."
And he tells you he doesn't know or recognize any Church of Osprey.
Seeker nods and then says, "That's what we just figured out. Thank you for your time."
And the creature glances back over the rest of you. And he brusquely tells his son to get back to work. And the son does. But instead of ducking down back into his metallic structure, he instead pulls out a small metallic stool, sets down on it, and starts packing a pipe. As he's watching both you and his son intently.
Connor is staring fascinated at the guy packing his pipe,
Mm-hmm.
but doesn't say it.
What's next?
Seeker heads over to back to the others and just says loudly so that the guy can hear them. "All right, I don't think he's going to give us directions to the Guildhall ward. Let's just keep going."
You said that loudly?
Yeah.
After a few moments, as you guys are moving forward into the square, you feel a tug at your cloak, Seeker.
Yeah.
Looking down,
Look down.
there's a pair of what looks like two somewhat humanoid rat children. And you're looking down at them, and you're already a gnome. So these guys are maybe 1.5 feet, 2 feet tall. You can tell that they spend a lot of their days just scrambling in between other people's feet. And they're speaking to you in broken common. And they ask if you need a guide to the Guildhall ward.
Seeker nods and then pulls out in his pocket 4 coppers and says, "We'll give you 4 coppers now and 4 when we get there. Another 4 if you can take us directly to the Middle Bob Company."
And the two creatures look at each other, and they chitter back and forth for a moment in language that's moving very, very quickly, obviously designed to be spoken 100 words a minute.
Mhm.
And they agree they can show you the way to the Guildhall ward, but they do not know the Middle Bob Company.
That's fair enough.
Good enough.
Okay, and then they both hold out both of their hands, palms splayed upwards.
I'll give them 2 coppers each.
Okay. And the copper disappears into a pocket in their cloak. And one of them tells you, "Don't pay anyone else," and begins moving out into the vast crowd.
All right, let's follow him.
The area that you move through here, as you come to the other side of where all this celebration and merriment are going on, music makers, storytellers, knife jugglers, all of this kind of thing. Way up over your head, cordoned off in an area, you see a group of people walking tightropes. And you're coming up on the left-hand side of this big top pavilion that's been set up. And the rat children lead you around the side of it. And you're thinking it's a large open-air market. There's a big celebration going on. But as you continue moving in this direction, you notice that the streets, the cobbles, become spaced further and further apart. To the point where, instead of being a cobblestone street, now it's more of a regular dirt road with large paving stones set in place, sometimes a foot or more apart. The buildings also seem to vanish. Not entirely, but they're replaced with temporary market stalls. People who've just thrown blankets out on the ground covered in wares. And the din of the city takes on the form of the largest market you've ever seen in your life. Gus, you've been to the open-air market in Kiska, I imagine.
Yeah.
This dwarfs that by orders of magnitude. You can stand anywhere in the open-air market of Kiska and look out and see the city walls, or see the edges of the market, or see the towers of the buildings or the castles around here. You could get lost in this place, like an ocean of market just surrounded by the smog. And these rat children are just deftly leading you, zigzagging back and forth through the area.
How do you suppose they find anything in this marketplace?
And you hear a voice behind you say, "It depends on what you're looking for."
Not looking for anything, thank you.
Lucius turns around.
Just jumps up out of his skin.
And by the time you turn around, the source of the voice is not evident.
Connor didn't even look at the voice. So. That works
Although
out.
Lucius is legitimately curious as to what the voice is selling, but once everything is once it's clear that they're gone, Lucius jogs to catch up.
I mean, Lucius,
Yeah,
you could spend
We're almost gone.
you could spend years at this market haggling and looking for anything. This is the place where you'd imagine anything is bought and sold. And these rat children are navigating it very, very deftly.
Oh, do they have NES carts somewhere? They have like a just like a.
I
We have
was
an entire crate of ETs.
we used to call it the dirt mall, but there's a there's a flea market actually really close to where I live, and we used to buy old video games and stuff there. And one time we went there, and the guy had two big rows of NES carts, and the first was just the hodgepodge of all the regular like used NES carts you'd see. The bottom row was all Star Tropics. This guy had friggin' 30 copies of Star Tropics.
My man, yeah.
It was weird. It's a good, probably close to an hour as they're zigzagging you between the stalls and the marketplace, and you constantly are being called at in a variety of languages. Seeker, it's actually relatively annoying that you can understand everything. People are calling out to you, trying to sell you all variety of goods. Gus, there's no small number of food peddlers here as well, if you're still hungry.
Yeah, I'm gonna like just take a moment to. I don't know how fast. If we're moving fast enough, I don't think I'm gonna have time to get myself a kebab.
Well, if you stop, the rat children will stop as well. Like,
Okay.
they're not going to
I
abandon you.
flipped- I flipped Gus a silver piece. Yeah,
Well,
pick something up for me.
I'm gonna try the coppers. I've got 12 coppers. Is that enough to buy everybody?
12 coppers can
Kebab?
find you guys a couple of bites of something or other.
Right.
Enough
Okay.
to feed all of you
I'll
for
get
now.
it.
Okay.
I don't want to give silver because we were told that we could offend people by offering silver. And gold.
Are you feeding the children as well?
Yes.
Okay. And they're delighted. That's probably what they were going to spend their copper coins on anyway. So you continue to move through this open air market, and it's vast. Every so often you walk past an actual building. When the buildings do appear here, it'll either be one large building like a tower in the center of the road, kind of with no rhyme or reason, or it'll be a small cluster of buildings that all look the same, kind of forming up one large city block, crisscrossed with alleyways between them. Eventually, though, the streets and regular crushed-in buildings do return. And there are several areas that are gated off with large iron bars and great blades adorning the top of them. The children avoid these and take you down a section of road where the cobblestones return, taking you in between these buildings. And far off in the distance, inside of the smog, as the rain has begun to subside, you can see a wall start to appear, a large walled-off structure. And one of the rat children tugs on Seeker's robes, points off in the distance, and tells you that the gymnasium is the center of the Guildhall ward. And then both of them hold out their palms face up.
Seeker nods and gives them each another 2 coppers.
And no sooner are they paid do they scamper off in the direction from which they came.
Gus will whistle at him and then wave bye.
Do you want to go see what's going on at this gymnasium then? Maybe they'll have directions there.
I don't know. This
maybe.
sounds like my kind of place. Let's
Yeah,
go.
maybe we can get Gus to flex for them and they'll give it to us for free.
Ah,
Heading off in the direction of the gymnasium. The characteristics of the streets here is neither the close, hot workshops of the forge area, nor are they the wide, densely, or carefully patrolled streets of the upscale section where you pass all of the manors and whatnot, nor is it the open area of the market. This would be more similar to like the districts, like the harbor districts of Dunfoss. Business and large transactions are done here, but they're typically not sales. They're not shops. This is where merchants would come to have a workshop where they sign contracts for large materials of goods to move in or out of the city or in some other way. So a lot of banks, a lot of financial institutions would be located here. And eventually the gymnasium does come into focus through the smog, and it's surrounded by a wall, but you see the wall is almost completely demolished. Big sections of it still stand, and the sections of it that do stand are covered in brightly colored paints, all different designs and pictures, ranging from just obvious splattered graffiti all the way to works of art you would see hanging in Corio Fireblood's personal quarters. No, that's not true, because he would just hang up a picture of himself.
No, we already have that one.
It doesn't look like it's in ruins, it's just the wall has been torn down in places. And behind it stands a massive courtyard filled with people, and you can see steam rising from one of 3 large open pools. And then at the far end of the courtyard, another gargantuan, just enormous building. Not quite as big as the Foundry, whose shadow you stood in earlier. But easily hundreds and hundreds of people in this courtyard of the gymnasium. The streets on all the sides of it lined with shops. What's next?
Lucius is very much the tourist's look in his eye right now.
Yeah, let's just find somebody and ask. That's how I found you guys in Dunfoss. Worked out great for me then.
Yeah, let's head over to... It doesn't... I mean, if those walls are tearing down, they can't be charging people to come in.
So you're headed to the gymnasium walls?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as you do, you start seeing more uniformity in the clothes the people are wearing, especially people in and around the courtyard, but also people that have small food stalls and other sorts of just small temporary structures where they're doing business out of. Some of these leaned up against the wall, some of them are leaned up against what looks like a series of dilapidated or abandoned buildings on the opposite side of the street. And the uniform you're seeing, not on everybody, but fairly regularly, is a white cloak or robe slashed across the front with what looks like a jagged green line.
Does anyone wearing that uniform not look particularly busy?
I mean, you can't find anybody that doesn't look busy doing something right now.
Okay.
Is there like a receptionist?
I mean, doesn't even look like there's a large gate going into the courtyard. It just looks like people are going in and out through the massive gaps in the wall, just spilling in and out of the courtyard entirely.
Okay.
Yeah, Lucius will start walking in. Why not?
Okay.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure, let's do it.
Nobody bats an eye, as you do. Nobody even bats an eye at your giant metal badger, as you do. Coming into the courtyard is dominated by 3 large pools, one of which has great gouts of steam coming off of it. People are using the pools, even the one that's boiling hot. In between the pools are many, many wooden structures set up. Lots of games being played, lots of exercise being done, lots of fighting and sparring, like you would see in the yard of a lord's castle. People fighting with practice weapons, wooden swords and sticks. People fighting using martial arts, which would be very uncommon to see in Dunfoss. Not a big monk population in Dunfoss, but very common here. Also circles of people practicing what looks like magical cantrips. There doesn't seem to be anybody in charge. Nobody's gravitating where?
Gravitating toward those people practicing magical cantrips.
Okay.
Is there a shooting range?
Absolutely. There's archery happening. Any sort
Is
of
there a shooting range where a gun wouldn't cause a disaster?
I guess for splitting up.
I'll say there's an archery range. If you're splitting up, that's up to you.
Like, well, I mean, the reason I ask is because, like, well, I mean, we could just each take a different
A different tack. Meet back
Yeah.
up here in the start, and maybe go about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Who
and
has
if we,
the highest passive perception? Actually, never mind, because Destil specifically said archery.
Oh.
There do seem to be some archery competitions set up. Some practice areas for short bow, long bow, crossbow, blowguns, that kind of thing. Nothing involving powder. However, for the first time since you've been in the city, and you've been here for hours now, and your feet hurt from the distance you've walked, and your mind is reeling from the sights that you've seen. For the first time since you've got to the city, at one of the archery ranges, using a crossbow with skill that seems to have attracted a small crowd, you see a gnome. The crossbow he's using has been modified, so it fires 3 bolts at once. And the skill with which he's wielding it is such that the targets, placed somewhat close together, with one pull of the trigger, he can hit all 3 bullseyes with a short sweeping motion. And he's able to do this fairly consistently. And he has attracted a small crowd. The gnome is one of the people wearing this... he's wearing white leathers slashed with this jagged green line.
Does he have to put new bolts into it after he does that, or is it just producing them?
He uses a winch loader. So
Like a cartridge of bolts?
yes, but he has to operate it by stretching the thing down with his foot, holding it to the ground so he can get the bolts in and then winch them back into place.
Okay.
This would definitely
Yeah,
be
I'm
more
gonna
of a siege weapon.
Watch this.
I'm gonna head over just because he seems like the most likely person to know where a Gnomish Artificer is.
Okay. So you guys are all standing around with this crowd watching this. He's not the only person doing feats like this. But lots of archery happening. So are you going to wait for him to be done, or are you going to interrupt him?
How many bolts does he have left?
It kind of doesn't matter because he can reuse the same bolts over and over. He's got runners to go out and retrieve them in multiple sets.
At a point where like he's waiting for the runners to get back, I'll ask him if he bought that at the middle bobs.
You kind of have to call out over the crowd whether he bought that at the middle bobs. And when he hears the name, he turns around and regards you, and he taps his chest. He says, "I am Bellingoth Middlebob."
That's good news. We're here to look for you. When do you think you'll be done?
Smiles brightly. You guys are conversing in Gnomish, I assume?
Yeah.
And he's speaking very good Gnomish. And he says, "Well, I always have time for a business opportunity." And he smiles brightly. And he hands off the crossbow to one of the other people in line, and he starts moving over towards you. And that's where we will call it for this week, having introduced Bellingoth Middlebob. I had a very loosely defined set of encounters based on whether you went one way through the city or the other way. I think it's fair to say that you went the nicer way. Alright, so I'm going to step away for just 2 minutes. And when I come back, we'll do some blips. And then when we come back next week, we'll do some more sigil.
The Flumph way of always paying for small children to do our work for us has paid off once again.
Who was the most creative today?
Trying to I blanked on the entire session. I don't know what we did.
Let's back to that one. Who was badass?
For the party's goals today.
Or party's goals. Party goals is fine. Alex took the bullet on 2 of those 3 things.
Yeah.
You did.
Alright,
Who was a
badass.
badass?
Let's see.
Anyone got anything they did?
I mean, I was trying to do things, but it seemed like I was getting pushed away. And I'm not accusing anybody of that. I'm just kind of like, I was like, I think I might have just been speaking too quietly and wasn't getting heard. Maybe.
I did appreciate from what I heard you're just let's speak to everybody. So like in freaking Sigil.
So for
I mean,
walking
Lucius
to new
did
people?
step up. Lucius was stepping up to this Minotaur guy, like, "Hey, what's up, guy?"
Sounds good. Yep. All right. So
Like he
creative then,
owns the joint.
because it's easy to give the last one to whoever. Anyone think of anything creative they did?
Seeker for yelling, for basically holding like 8 copper pieces up and going, "We need a guide." That's all I can think
That's
of.
fair.
Fair enough. Okay, and intangibles. I was gonna say Gus for telling sorry, I was trying to remember his name, but it
Is
said
it Mad
Florian
Metal
on the right there.
or
Who's our new Florian?
Connor?
Connor. For telling Connor to use his ability to tell if there's any Fae nearby.
No, I will nominate Connor for just pushing past all the stuff and says, "Hey, how come you such a raging?" Yeah.
That was pretty good too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
asking him about his boner.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that.
Connor for the boner questions.
For the
important questions.
for the hard
For his hard
questions.
hitting commentary.
Yeah.
The hard hitting questions.
Oh, I just letting everybody know I'm probably gonna get into I'm probably gonna challenge some of these fools to like a fight while we're here, a sparring match next week. I want to see.
Like, I want to do things like that, but I just don't want to bog things down.
Bog them down. It's fine.
Yeah.
Do it.
Once there was archery, I was just like, "Oh, this is totally Connor's thing." Connor would actually relax when he's shooting something.
And that's
See, the
actually
problem
why
is you guys
Lucius
are going to
like,
challenge
"Take
everyone to
over."
fights. Meanwhile, I'm going to be in the background organizing a betting ring.
No, that's fair.
Listen,
That's why Lucius was like trying to go. I was like, "Ooh, magic stuff. I like magic stuff. Let's see the magic stuff."
I feel like that both Gus and Lucius would be disappointed if Seeker didn't.
I mean, yeah,
and
you're
we
right.
and we expect
Absolutely right.
not only is it expected, it's required.
See, I'm not going to tell Seeker to do, like, if he doesn't want to, that's perfectly fine with him, but...
What are we telling
he just
Seeker
be
to
like,
do?
Come on, bruh.
Seeker things.
Yeah, Seeker things.
Seeker being a Seeker.
That's dangerous. Who wants some blips?
Sure, I'll take some. I'll take all of them.
Lucius. What do you got?
I have knowledge is paramount for trying to find trying to get lost in the market ward for every cool thing that was catching his eye. And
Okay.
I have double or nothing for walking up to the Minotaur child. It's like, "Hey, what's up?" And he's like, the big guy's like, "Don't talk to me or my son ever again." And I'm like, it's fine. It's cool.
That's exactly what I was going for.
I'm glad we're on the same wavelength there, Brickroad.
Good.
Can't really think of anything for my alignment that I did today that was particularly working well for my fellow peoples.
Okay, who's next?
So,
I can go.
Go.
I've got chaotic good. Good is only taken from those that can afford it. Chaos is taking them for all they're worth. For jumping in front of Alex before he did the last bit of that puzzle because he seemed like he had given everything he could.
Okay.
I've got opportunities everywhere, if you can see it, for using Lucius's altercation with the Firemaker to hire some rat boys.
Okay.
And I've got anybody can be fooled except for me, for getting the option between buying some metal from a person who would be very easily able to sell it to us and just stealing it and immediately going to theft.
Is that Seeker's philosophy? Always go immediately to the theft?
Always go for the big con.
Always go for the thing that spends the least amount of money.
Which is interesting because by hopping in front and taking that bullet for Alex, you cost us an extra 150 gold.
No, because
In
I
the
didn't
long
take it.
In the
We
long-
never went and got it fixed.
Alex did.
I didn't, I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
I know, but in the long run, if you need it fixed, it costs an extra 150 gold.
Who's next?
Listen, Alex gave it.
I can go.
Go.
Neutral good, I must be a benefactor and try to leave things in a better state than I found it for buying everybody lunch including the rat children who, like, it's just a couple coppers. It's fine.
I just have an irrational fondness for rat folk. I don't think
Folk are cool.
Yeah, they're cool, but I don't think there's any official D&D material where you can play the rat folk.
I don't think there is, no.
And my companions are my support structure, and I must do what I can to protect them from themselves. For spending the downtime scribing a Burning Hand scroll and giving it to Seeker, because he really should be that kind of wizard. Because our that kind of wizard is dead.
Okay.
Howard.
And the video.
Okay. And who's next?
Connor will go.
Connor.
Alright. Flaws. Subtlety and diplomacy are not in my lexicon. For asking Mad Metal about his boner.
So, the story behind that, which Mad Metal will never tell you,
Yeah.
but when you guys found your way into Mad Metal's room, Seeker immediately, all right, we found our way in. You got a description of the room, and then he immediately went to bed. Nobody actually investigated through Mad Metal's room. He has a little workshop in his room, and what he was making was essentially an Artificer's alchemical sex toy. He was in a bizarre sex off with Stormling.
Yeah, I imagine so.
That had escalated to just incredible heights. Frankly, unhealthy heights, to the point where she just kind of tied him up in her sex dungeon, put him in a permanent state of ecstasy, and then went off to war and left him there. That's the backstory.
Yeah, that does go beyond safe, saying consensual.
This-
Not gonna lie.
This is what happens when high-level artificers,
Bone?
when regular missionary style can't do it for them anymore.
This is why it's a good thing Alex is kind of technically in poverty. I'm just saying.
Also,
Don't think Connor's not gonna ask Alex to make alchemical Viagra, okay?
he lives on a barge. He doesn't have a bunch of bedrock underneath to hollow out a giant. I mean, don't get me wrong. High-level sorcerers also have their own versions of sex dungeons. And we won't even talk about what the warlocks are doing. Holy crap.
Listen, don't judge.
Meanwhile, high-level wizards just build an even bigger library.
Yeah.
I thought that was a fun and appropriate story to have in my D&D game.
Ideals, I must warn everyone for the very real dangers of Fae and Fiends and Fae and Undead and Fae and other monsters for having a panic attack as soon as they entered Sigil and when he saw the fake creature.
If you ever use that class feature, should you just have your head explode?
I was thinking about, should I actually have him use it?
'Cause I'll be honest, I can't think of anywhere in Dunfoss you couldn't use that feature and get a positive trigger.
Yeah,
Let
but
alone
using that
Sigil.
as Sigil is just Yeah. No.
Sigil has all those things plus like 40 other kinds of things that it doesn't check for.
So like,
I don't want them to deal with a mental breakdown just yet.
I like to picture like that class feature as unhelpful as possible. Not only is it like miles wide, it doesn't even tell you what is it. It just gives you a just like in your mind just the word yes.
You just get a thumbs up. Connor, is that it?
Yeah, that's it. I imagine it's like the Highlander sense where it just goes off, but it's just like, oh shit.
What does Alexander have for me?
Lawful neutral, always willing to take the law into your own hands, but no further. For insisting on making sure that the contract for the illegal activity with Mad Metal was properly documented.
Fair enough.
As peanut butter.
As
Yes.
improperly
peanut butter.
documented.
Is that it?
Yep.
We have one blip for the most creative solution to a problem this session.
That was Seeker for taking 8 copper from Alexander and holding it up and saying, "Hey, we need guides," and then getting small children to do the work for us.
You can always find touts in Sigil to do that kind of work. That's what they're called in Sigil parlance. Who furthered the party's goals the most?
That was Alex for bringing
For jumping on 2 of the 3 stat down grenades.
That part was actually not in the adventure. It's so weird because the end of the adventure, you have a room called Wisdom Trap, Strength Trap, and Dexterity Trap. But for some reason, the solution is like just to get on the pedestal and then pass the save. And like after everything else in the dungeon, that's the big finale. You just pass 3 saves and you're done. So I thought
What happens if you fail the saves? Does just nothing happen? You get no feedback?
No, let's see. The Wisdom Trap. Pass the save or you'd be struck with the Moonbeam spell. The Strength Trap is... you pass the save or Ethereal Arms reach out to grapple you. And then... Which, if you're grappled, it doesn't matter. Because you're not... If there's no other present danger in the room. The Athletics one is... to maintain balance or you fall to another room. But which room is it?
Oh no.
Oh, somehow it's that 3-level clockwork shaft you guys had to go up through. It's the bottom level of that. How that works, I don't know. Because physically it's not located next to it. I guess it's a teleporter or something. But you just fall in and you get teleported back to the beginning of the dungeon, basically. I thought those were weak sauce. I thought it was much more fun to take your guys' attributes away. Anyway, we have one blip for who was the badass this session.
That was Lucius for just being as friendly as possible in this city.
Okay.
Especially toward guys who could snap me in half with a glare.
Don't speak to his child ever again.
And we have one for the intangibles.
That was Connor for the hard questions.
Wait, what hard question?
We'll explain when you're older.
I don't get it. And Strawpoll keeps giving me an error when I try to load the site, so I can't make a Strawpoll this week.
So we all win.
No, nobody gets a blip. I get it. I get it, and I award it to Precious, the dead doll that you all ingraciously
We've been
murdered.
told time and time again we're not allowed to give blips to dead people.
You're not.
Yeah.
I am. I'm allowed to do whatever I want because I'm the DM.
Seems like a double standard.
Alexander, you had 6 blips. You just earned 2. You're just rolling them over.
Yep.
And we're at level 9 right now, correct?
Yep.
Blips are worth 533. So you're rolling 2 over. Connor had 6. You just earned 3. Seeker, you earned 6. Or you had 6. You earned 4. Lucius, you had 0 and earned 3. Are you coming in next session with 3?
Yes.
And Gus, you had 5.
Build those back up.
You had 5 and earned 3. Are you coming in next week with 6?
Yes.
All right, that's that. Thanks for playing, guys. I'll see everybody next week, and we'll see what all terrible changes have been made to the City of Doors since last time you were here.
What's red?
Yeah, it's my Fred.